Could Liverpool be about to make the biggest signing in Premier League football history? This could be massive. This could be gargantuan. But this also could just be fan speculation, media fueled. I want your opinions. I want your thoughts and feelings in the comments section below. Make sure you're liking. Make sure you're subscribing. Get the bell notification turned on as well. We're going to come back to the Liverpool part in a moment, but I want to start with Newcastle. Newcastle are what appears to be advancing very quickly to a fantastic, a huge, a marquee signing who I think is a needle mover for them. Hugo Ekitike is closing in on a deal that is quoted to range between 65 million and 85 million pounds. I'm going by the variety of reports that we've seen. My gut feeling is the German press is going to push that price up. The British press is going to push that price down. You'll probably find there's some truth somewhere nearer the middle. David Ornstein here says that Newcastle are working on a deal worth around 75 million euros. That's Ornstein's view, to sign Hugo Ekitike. Whilst an agreement, he says, is not yet close. I don't quite agree, personally, with all the media reporting on it, but fair enough. Talks are ongoing between the clubs over a potential deal which would eclipse Newcastle's previous transfer record of 71 million they paid to Sociedad, ironically, for Isak in 2022. Ekitike's proposed £20 million plus transfer to Newcastle in January 2022 broke down on deadline day, but the Northeast side have continued to keep tabs on the 23-year-old. Goes on to speak about the goals that he scored, the contract that he had in France, etc., etc. Not most of that is not particularly important right now. It says here that, as reported in The Athletic last month, Man United also inquired about the availability of Ekitike this summer, whilst Chelsea were interested before signing the Lap and, of course, João Pedro. It says there has been a transformation in mood and momentum in Newcastle's window after what felt like a slow burn start. With near misses on several targets, suddenly there is optimism about what can be achieved ahead of their return to the Champions League. He goes on and he says, obviously, follow-up questions as to what this means for Isak's future. He says that the insistence from Newcastle is that Newcastle want to boast both amongst their frontline options. So it's very important to remember. The tweet says play alongside each other. The article talks about them both being part of the frontline options, and that is Newcastle's stance right now. And we can take them at their word. What has also been said, and I think this is so important for balance, because a lot of people will just read the tweet that says that they want them both. They won't read the next part, which is how Eddie Howe would keep the pair plus Gordon, Barnes, Elanga happy is unclear. The finances involved in retaining all will stretch Newcastle from a PSR perspective, but those are inevitable problems to have. Concluding a transfer of this magnitude is not straightforward, and it is far from complete yet, but this latest development feels extremely encouraging for Newcastle fans. And it is encouraging for Newcastle fans. But there is still that question, will Isak stay? Or could, as we spoke about at the top of the content, could Liverpool make a British transfer record deal and take Isak away? My mind hasn't changed about this all summer. It's plausible. It's doable. When you look at Newcastle's financial situation, they're going to spend big this summer. Yes, they're in the Champions League, but they're still a club that's only turning over circa 300 million a year. Yes, that will increase with Champions League football, but there is also going to be further outgoings. So this idea that, wow, we're getting an extra 80, 100 million for being in the Champions League, we can spend all that money on players, is a little ridiculous. And I'll tell you why. There'll be a number of players in the Newcastle squad that will have bonuses given to them for qualifying for the Champions League. There'll be a number of players in the squad that will have bonuses if they get to certain stages of the Champions League. So that money now will have to be placed aside in pots, in bank accounts, in case those bonuses need to be paid. There is also the extra minimum of 4, because you play 8 group games now, a minimum of 4 home games. Very likely Newcastle finish at least in the playoff position, so there could be 5 games to play when it comes to the knockout phases. But this could actually end up being an extra 5, 6, 7, 8 games at home if they progress. Newcastle have to put budget aside. Yes, a lot of the money they get is for hosting those games, but you have to pay for stewards, policing, etc., etc., and that costs millions of pounds as well. So as much as there's a new lump sum of income, you can't just spend it all on players because there's multiple other areas to factor that spend into. That doesn't mean, though, that Newcastle won't increase their spending. What will also happen is Newcastle will already start in their financial departments planning next year. And this is very important for understanding. So please listen. When you do your budgeting, you do a version with Champions League football, but your main version is without it. Because Champions League football, to every team in the Premier League, is a bonus of income. And it's never a guarantee. And if you need it to survive and you miss out, you're going to have to sell assets or you could be in dire straits. So whatever you're committing to spending over a 3, 4, 5 year period on a rolling basis, you have to be able to do that without Champions League money to ensure you're growing. So again, Newcastle are unlikely to spend every single penny of what they make because that could leave them short in future. And I think it's important. Now, that being said, Newcastle are correct when they say, we don't want to do this. We don't want to sell Isak to anybody and want to keep him. But in football, wanting something and doing something are very different scenarios in reality. One, I still think this is a foreshadowing. I don't think Isak spends the rest of his career at Newcastle. I think in a year or two, I think he moves on. That could be the play here. Let's do it for a year. Let's see the growth of Ekitike. And maybe then if people want to give us big money for Isak, we move on. But I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't shock me in any way, any shape or any form if Liverpool were to now make a big money move for Alexander Isak. As David Ornstein says, yes, Newcastle insist they're going to keep all the players. He also states it's going to be a stretch to keep them all from a PSR point of view. However, a big money sale for Isak, a huge injection of cash, could also lead to 2 or 3 additional signings that give them more strength in depth. The one thing I would say in Newcastle's favour is there is probably a massive motivation, even if they're privately considering selling Isak, to give it a year to see how Ugo Ekitike fits into their system, integrates into the Premier League, settles into the team before they consider doing it. That being said, world record fees, or at least Premier League record fees, they do turn heads. It's going to be a very, very interesting next few days in relation to the Ugo Ekitike deal. As I've said before on my main channel, the Football Terrace, this is fantastic business for Newcastle. There's no doubt about it. You can't sort of break that. You can't ignore how good a talent this is. I'm very jealous as a Man United fan, I am. And let me also say this, because I already know 8 minutes in, I'm getting pelters from Newcastle fans. I don't want Isak to leave you. I don't want him to leave you and become a Liverpool player. My biggest rivals, the current best team in England, looking for number 21, looking for another Champions League. Trust me, barring him leaving Europe altogether because, he's a pest. He's a brilliant player. I don't want this to happen. I wouldn't celebrate this happening on a personal level any more than you. In fact, it would hurt me more as a United fan than it would you, Newcastle. At least you're getting the money. At least you're going to get Ekitike. At least your owners are going to invest that money into better players to keep growing you. All that's going to happen to me is my team isn't going to improve as much as I want us to. Liverpool are going to get even better, win more trophies. It's pain. I'm telling you, it's more painful for me than you. I promise. But it's happening. Why do I keep thinking it's happening? And I know Newcastle fans think it's about their club. It isn't. I think it's happening because it's going to hurt my club. Look, give us your thoughts, give us your feelings in the comment section below. This deal, if Liverpool pull this off, if Liverpool are to do this, you could argue they're having the greatest summer of transfers in the history of Premier League football. I think they'll be uncatchable, undeniable, and absolutely inevitable if they get this deal done. But I want your thoughts. I want your opinions in the comment section below. We'll see you all again soon.